This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, Team Top Cat Sales. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to topcatteamsales.com. That's topcatteamsales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome to another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. This is the Doc and Jock Sports Podcast, episode 137. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
Hey, so on tomorrow, big movie drops. Batman vs. Superman. Where's this on your radar? Does it rank at all? Because I know I don't know. Are you a huge comic book guy? Like, I'm a huge comic book nerd. Like, me and the wife, we're both, like, just geeks about this stuff. So I know we're going to go see it. And this seems to be, like, I mean, there are people who have bought tickets almost a month ago for this thing. Are you going to go see this?
No, I'm not.
What?
I am not a comic book guy on any front. I have been reading the reviews, and it's very interesting, very polarizing. A lot of people are saying it's not that great, and a lot of people that have seen it already have been like, wow, the visual effects, the CGI is awesome. I just read an article on MLive that said that if you're kind of looking for Detroit-type stuff, it's not a whole lot in there because, you know, it's shot for the movie, it's Gotham. Mm-hmm. They shot it in Detroit, but there's not going to be a whole lot of things, so you got to actually pay a lot of attention. Really, I'm not into it in terms of going to the theater. The last one that I saw, and I guess it was so good that I really don't need to keep seeing it, was the last Heath Ledger Batman movie.
It was good.
Awesome in the theater. The effects, the experience was so awesome. I left like, wow, this is good.
Kind of eerie and a little bit bone-chilling, too, because he ended up taking his life.
Yeah, so I don't need to keep singing. Plus now, with my setup at home, I have, with decent Blu-ray and decent equipment, I get the same kind of experience. So I'm more now transitioned with kids into watching more movies at home. So I'm more of a Netflix guy, renting movies, HBO type stuff. But what's the buzz about? Tell me, fill me in.
Well, this movie is supposed to pit Batman vs. Superman, and it's supposed to be the takeoff of Man of Steel, which was a Superman movie. Okay. And basically, it's an older Batman. He's kind of been semi-retired, and his major concern is Superman is an alien force that is all-powerful. So what happens if he ever decides to turn against society? Can somebody take him down? Well, Batman is now hell-bent on taking Superman down, while Superman does not like the way Batman handles his crime fighting. He feels like he's a very vengeful person, and he feels like he's a vigilante, and that there is other ways to go about finding justice. So it's kind of they don't see eye to eye on how to solve the crime issues. And Wonder Woman's going to be in it. She looks incredible. This is kind of a takeoff of Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, which is a great comic book. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's probably about 20 years old now, but it's an incredible comic book. And that's kind of the backdrop for this. I myself am very interested to see this. I absolutely hate Superman. I think he's the worst comic book character ever created. I think he's atrocious. I mean, basically you built God and you're like, here, go ahead. You go fight crime. There's nothing that can really stop you. Oh, great. A fluorescent piece of green rock. That's it. And maybe Doomsday. I just think Superman's atrocious. However, I do love Batman. When I was a child, my room was, because this is back when the Michael Keaton Batman and the Tim Burton Batman came out, my bedroom was just adorned with Batman posters and framed pictures of Batman. I love Batman. I think he's great. So I'm Team Batman all day. If you had to pick a side, would you be Team Batman or Team Superman?
No, Team Batman for sure.
Awesome.
But
we can see eye to eye on this.
Yeah, for sure. But I definitely did love Christopher Reeve. See, I'm not into the whole new age type stuff. Like, I grew up in the early 80s, and we got to see Christopher Reeve's Superman, and it was awesome. You know, spinning the world back. I think it was 1 or 2. It slips my mind at the moment. But I like that. So all this new stuff, all the technology, not really for me. I'm more of a comedy guy, so the Kevin Hart movies recently have been hilarious. The one he did with Will Ferrell, Get Hard, was utterly hilarious. I laugh start to finish. So when I go to a movie now, I would much rather laugh than be excited by all the action and drama all around me. But next week, after you see it, I'm looking forward to you coming in here, telling us about it, giving us the Jock's review, how many thumbs up, how many stars you give it, and I think it's going to be good. It was shot in Detroit. Ben Affleck was here. It was nice when Michigan gave all the incentives to the movie studios to come here, but that got cut off, so they're not here anymore. So this is one of those movies that everyone's excited about, so I look forward to hearing it, but it's not for me.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I'm really interested. Before we kick off some March sadness, mix in a little Dachshund session, and we're going to start this bad boy off with some Tigers. What's the opposite of Christopher Walken?
Do tell.
Christopher Reeves.
Oh, man.
Sorry, dude.
That just to start off with a joke like that. Wow, bro. That's good. That's a good one. Man.
For those who don't get it, Christopher Reeves is paralyzed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk some Tigers here. I feel like we should have the wah wah wah.
It's kind of like today in terms of the Detroit sports scene, kind of a malaise. You got injuries with the Tigers. You got Justin Verlander coming out in the paper saying he's not all thrilled, can't keep, the baseball down. He got rocked his last start. You had Daniel Norris, who now is going to go probably on the DL with a back problem. You got Victor Martinez, who's not going to be around. He's got lingering hamstring issues. So there's a little bit of concern going on with the Tigers right now in terms of spring training. And, they've done a lot of good hitting. They've, matched the baseball. They have a winning record, but a lot of concerns ahead of the start of the season. And it's really concerning to look at the Tigers because on top of the struggles potentially with the Tigers, you got the issues with the Red Wings, Pistons, and it's just one of those situations. My confidence level right now is I'm a little bit sad in terms of, where I sit now in Detroit sports. I'm a little bit sad talking about the state of these Detroit teams. And the Tigers right now, I'm not really confident.
Yeah, I don't really blame you there. It's, with Daniel Norris kind of going down and been struggling with his back issue through most of spring training, that leads to a lot of question marks. Again, Victor Martinez, he's taking some batting practice now, but he's not 100% and ready to go. You've got Anibal Sanchez, who looked really solid the other day. Granted, he went against a very bad Phillies team. Like, they're atrocious. They have one guy who can swing a baseball bat. However, he went 4 innings. He threw 54 pitches, and he looked strong. He had 3 strikeouts in those 4 innings. So that's a good sign. So that has me feeling a little bit better about everything. And Brad Ausmus has come out and said that Anibal might be able to go game 2 of the season, which is right around the corner. Hooray, opening day. I know I'm pumped. I'm pretty sure you are as well. But that's probably the best thing that's come out of this past week with the Tigers is Anibal Sanchez being able to give you 4 innings. And that's not saying a whole lot.
And then Pelfrey's in the minors. He's getting rocked in the minors.
He's atrocious. I don't understand that signing.
I don't understand that. You saw the numbers. You saw what he was capable of.
You're going to have to lean on Matt Boyd or Shane Green. Those are going to be the 2 guys you're going to have to lean on as your 5th starter.
So going into it, you're like, wow, dude, seriously, this is what we got going in. You needed health. You needed stability. You needed the starting pitchers to do well. You need this bullpen to step it up. You need the offense to be significantly clicking. And that's been okay in watching some of the spring training games. But there's a lot more question marks than answers going into the start of the season. And so Anibal Sanchez, let's start with that. Obviously, there's a concern with his arm injuries. Since that contract extension, which we're paying him big money, over $16 million per season, he hasn't really lived up to the hype. And this is a guy that we're all counting on to potentially be that solid number 3 starter in that rotation. And so now, entering the season, you feel like this guy has a lot more question marks than you do answers. And so I'm just a little bit concerned that
that's how he's been through. So the last 2 or 3 years,
even when healthy, he's been getting rocked. Velocity's not where it needs to be, and he's been hittable. Are you thinking that Anibal Sanchez is going to be a contributing factor on this Tigers team? This is going to be a guy that we can count on. I feel like this guy is going to start being the ire of the fans, and might be a guy that doesn't make it deep because remember, he was only going 6 innings and then fading. He'd only get to he'd have that magic 100 pitch situation where once he got to 100 pitches, it would be like, boom, he'd get rocked, and then his ERA would balloon in the later innings.
$16.8 million is what they're paying him, and I think he's going to be a giant question mark as the season wears on. He hasn't shown over the course of the last 2 or 3 years to remain healthy and to be able to give you the innings that you need from a guy that you're paying almost $17 million to. So going forward with Anibal, you need him to be your number 3. He's one of those guys that we have targeted as being a main cog that has to get going to make this that war machine that wins us a World Series. And he's just a giant question mark right now. So I'm super concerned. Yes, I'm happy that he was able to give you 4 solid innings. And I was happy that he was able to sit there and have control over his pitches. But at the same point, I'm surprised his arm hasn't fallen off yet. I really feel like it's held on with duct tape and super glue. Because every single season, it seems like he's on the DL with either a tricep issue, a shoulder issue, a finger issue, a hand issue, and it's all related to his pitching arm. So I have monster question marks going forward with this guy.
Exactly. And so this is, it's one of those situations where, okay, you see Zimmerman, he's been great. Let's highlight that. This is a guy that's come in and has been, handling his situation, handling this new assignment for him, coming in, potentially being the number 1A guy that we're going to count on to be a significant starter. I'm happy with what I've seen this spring training. You go down the line to Verlander, he started off great. And now, though, you look at the gun, it isn't showing, it isn't popping per se, but he is mixing in pitches. But he did get rocked against the Nationals, and has come out and said that he's having a little bit of trouble with control, keeping the ball down, and he wants to work on it. With Justin Verlander, I'm starting to get the vibe that he's going to be up and down. He's going to be someone that's going to have some starts where you go, this is the JV of old, and he's going to have some starts where he's going to have trouble getting outs early, giving up a lot of runs. But the big key now with this Detroit Tigers team is going to be, again, what's this bullpen going to be able to do? And what is this offense, what is this potent lineup going to be able to do in order to help these pitchers? It's going to be incumbent upon this lineup, 1 through 9, to get the starters a lot of runs, give them a little bit more cushion. Because last year you saw, in 1-run games, in tight games, it was just really challenging because when the starters would go deep, then the bullpen would jack it all up. And then when we when we score a lot of runs, when we needed situations where we needed the starters to go deeper, they would give up a lot of runs. So it was never all put together as a unit. And that's what I'm trying to see with this Tigers team. Are they going to be able to collectively, offensively, defensively, starters, bullpen, work it all together? I'm not seeing it just yet. I'm still seeing a disjointed, different bunch of units there, and I'm not really confident just yet going into the start of the season.
See, with Verlander, I see it a little bit different, and maybe I'm a little bit more confident in what JV has done this spring training. He's given you 14 innings, and he's only allowed 3 earned runs. Mm-hmm. I think that's really solid, especially coming from a guy who the last 2 years has been dealing with injuries and has been really hurt. And, we sat there and we crucified him last year because we're like, what the hell are you doing? And you're right, he did get rocked a little bit against the Nationals there. He gave up 2 home runs. That accounts for 2 of those 3 earned runs that he's given up. But I think JV is doing a much better job this spring training working on his pitches, and I think he's doing a better job of placing those. I'm very confident in Justin Verlander headed into opening day. I think he's going to be solid. I think he's going to be okay. Do I feel like he'll be that stopper if we get on like a 5-game skid and we need somebody to sit there and end this? I'm more apt to say yes than I am to say no. And that's just because I believe he's healthy again. And I think he's come to the realization that he can't overpower batters anymore. He can't sit there and dial it up to 101. Like you said, the gun's showing that he's not getting up there. He's not hitting triple digits anymore. So I think if he can sit there and command his fastball somewhere in the 95, 96 mile an hour range, I don't have a problem with that. As long as he can place it. Honestly, you got to stop being a thrower at some point in your career. And I think it's time for Verlander to become a pitcher. I mean, honestly, this guy's 33 years old. It's time for him to make that adjustment in his game. And I think that we're going to see that in the 2016 season.
And then another player who's a little bit older, a guy that we're counting on in this lineup offensively, Victor Martinez. That hamstring hasn't responded exactly according to plan, has been out of the lineup, and now I guess they're going to try to hold him off a little bit later, try to continue to let him heal, try to let him get back. And so this is a guy that at his age, you're going to probably figure he's going to struggle a little bit with injuries, but we do need him to be effective in that lineup to protect guys like JD Martinez, to protect that lower half of the lineup. So with a guy like Victor Martinez struggling, do you see it being a significant hit to that lineup? Do you see guys like Castellanos and McCann and Iglesias stepping up to kind of cover for him? I feel like it's a lingering issue. And again, with a predominantly right-handed lineup, you needed V-Mart in the lineup to be healthy. And so his injuries, it's a significant point so far in spring training.
Well, absolutely. He's one of those guys that has to perform. And again, like you said, it's a predominantly right-handed batting lineup. He is one of the only guys who can go up there and hit left-handed. So you absolutely need him to be healthy. And always, it's something with his legs, whether it be his knee or whether it be a hamstring. It's always something. And honestly, the guy needs a rascal to get down to first base. He's older. He can hardly move. His knees are bone on bone. So yes, you need him being healthy headed into opening day. You need his bat. You need his power. And you need his leadership in that locker room, because you've seen what happens when he's not there. It becomes a giant free-for-all. A guy like Miguel Cabrera, who we all expect to be that leader, that guy, the clubhouse glue that keeps it all together, whether or not he's not matured into that or that's just not him, it leaves you wanting a little bit more. So you need Victor Martinez in that locker room. You need him in the clubhouse, and you need his power. You need his bat, and you need it from both sides. Him being hurt, him now being able to take some batting practice, that's good, but it just delays his spring training. It delays what he has to do to get ready for this season. And it just, what that ends up doing is it puts more pressure on a guy like Miguel Cabrera, who now has to put up bigger numbers. Going into this season, I was looking at Miguel Cabrera as a guy who needed to hit somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 home runs and about 125 RBI to sit there to push this team into the playoffs. If Victor Martinez is hurt, you need to jump that up to almost 45 and almost 140, Miguel Cabrera is getting older. He hasn't exactly been 100% healthy. I know that he's come out and basically said that he's healthy this season, but at the same point, he's an older player now, and I don't know if you can actually demand that. I mean, he's a couple years removed from being able to give you numbers like that,
I'm of the opinion that Miguel is going to be okay. By all accounts, what we've seen, that he had a full offseason to rest, that he had, nothing lingering, no off-season surgeries, that he was able to do what he needed to do to get back. So that's good. Again, with him, it's going to be, can he survive the rigors of another season? He's getting older, but if he's in the lineup, you fully expect that he's going to mash the ball. He's going to maybe have, ups and downs like most batters do, but this is a professional hitter. This is a guy that I would expect to be the MVP of the team again, and somebody that you would expect to be able to handle your business. And maybe in future podcasts, we'll throw out some ideas of, if this team is broken apart, is that the guy that you unload, or is someone like JD Martinez somebody you would unload first should this go south? Because I still feel like at this point in time in Miguel's career, should things go really, really south with the Tigers, that's a piece that could draw you a starting infielder, outfielder, or a starting pitcher, and maybe both, and some draft picks. I still feel like the load you could get for Miguel Cabrera still could be high. So I'm hoping that's not the case. We don't have to talk about that, but he is still a piece, and he could be somebody that could be used as a bargaining chip to get additional help if you're going to rebuild.
That becomes the conversation when the Tigers are 4-24, and Ausmus has already been blown out, and we've got to take a real hard look at this situation and possibly just blow it up, drop a nuke on it. Let's start over.
So I just sent out a poll
on
our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, and I'll get your opinion. Are the Detroit Tigers, in your mind, as we talk today, late March, about to head into the season, pretenders or contenders?
I think they're contenders. Real quick with that answer, too. I think they're contenders.
Why would you say that?
And what leads me to say that is you just have to win your division, okay? The Indians don't strike fear in me. The White Sox, at this point, there might be all kinds of implosions there with the whole Adam
LaRoche.
Yeah, Adam LaRoche situation with his child. Thank you. It was tip of my tongue there. I couldn't pull it. The only team that really kind of startles me is Kansas City. And they're a totally different team than what they were last year when they won the World Series. So I think having a healthy Verlander, adding Jordan Zimmerman, if Anibal Sanchez can get himself figured out, again, giant question mark, I think that top of the rotation will match up against anybody in this division. Now you add in a healthy Miguel, and you add in a JD, you add in a Justin Upton. I like the top of that rotation, and I do like what James McCann brings. I think that's something that we're not going to see, that we haven't even talked about yet, is what James McCann will bring to this. On top of him being a leader, he's got a little bit of a bat. I mean, we haven't seen a catcher who can hit the damn ball, and I don't know how long. So I think that helps out a lot.
So I have to disagree with you completely. Your stance and opinions are based on a lot of what ifs. What if Miguel's healthy? What if Vimart's healthy?
It's spring training.
Yeah, but I'm going into it now watching what I've seen so far, and I see a lot of injuries, a lot of situations where there's question marks.
You've got Cameron Maybin, who's hurt. All right, were you counting on big numbers from him?
I was counting on some base running, yeah. I wasn't
counting on anything from that guy.
Oh, you brought him in here to do something. You brought him in here to really maybe get on base more than Ghost potentially could. Now, I don't think it's going to be a significant loss, no. But you got injuries all over the place to guys that are important. Alex Wilson was counted upon. Daniel Norris was supposed to be a significant piece. Shane Green, you think, is just going to be, coming off of a great spring, just going to be that guy that is just going to pick up right where he left off before he got hurt last year. lot more question marks. To answer that question, I think they're pretenders. The reason
what
is
about all the additions to the bullpen? Because
they haven't looked that great.
The bullpen has crippled this team over the course of the last 5 or 6 years.
Now, we're recording this one day after the Blue Jays just went off and it was like 16-1.
You're right.
So I'm looking at it like, okay, I understand. I'm talking about what am I going to see this season? Yes, relatively speaking, in the division, the division is not that great. But if a lot of experts are picking the Tigers to finish last, why? So if you ask that, why are they doing that? Because of question marks all over the place.
I think they look at a lot of what happened last year with this team.
What you're doing is you're saying, okay, if we get the best Verlander, if we get the best Anibal Sanchez.
I don't need the best Verlander.
If you don't get the best Verlander, they're going to get rocked.
No, I think if you get a Verlander who's made adjustments to his game, I think you'll be absolutely okay.
You're satisfied with a 10-10 Verlander with a 4 ERA that doesn't get a lot of outs?
I want a 15-5 Verlander or a 15-7 Verlander is what I want.
I don't know if you're going to get that.
I want a Verlander who can control his pitches and place them at 95, 96 miles an hour. That's what I want, and that's what I'm counting on getting going into this season.
So you're counting on Anibal Sanchez to be healthy and to be well. You're counting on Shane Green. You're counting on Jordan Zimmerman. So you're going to have situations that, a lot of counting on and not a lot of proven, I'm looking at like, okay, the Cubs, the Mets, the teams out in the AL West are going to be strong. So, and even then, we could say that the AL Central is not great, but there have been improvements all across the board.
Look, all you have to do is get into the dance. That's it. You've seen it time and time again with a team like the St. Louis Cardinals, who head into the playoffs basically as a wild card team at 80 and 82. Somehow they catch lightning in a bottle, and next thing you know, they go on a tear and they win World Series.
Listen,
and it's happened time and time again. You just have to get in the dance.
Miguel Cabrera and Victor Martinez are one single away from pulling out hamstrings, or Miguel Cabrera rounding first, trying to steal, get into second. He might just be one play away from a devastating injury, things like that. So I think that right now they're pretenders. I just think that I'm not confident going into the season. That I need to see when this season starts that they're going to go gangbusters and get me a nice start. I know it's a long season. I know that things can ebb and flow, and that's why baseball is great. But going into the season, I just feel like they're pretenders, and they're going to be. I don't think they're going to fall off and be last in the division. My thinking is they're going to be middle of the road, 81 and 81, 85, 80, max 85, 86 wins due to a lot of question marks, injuries that may pop up. Unless Brett Ausmus is the next, great manager out there, I don't see a significant improvement that you can make in year 3 from year 2 and 1. So I think I know what Brett Ausmus is, and I see what's going on. It's not going to be abysmal. Not a last place team, not a first place team. Pretenders being average. 81, max maybe 85 to 87 wins should they get lucky. That's just where I stand today. I hope I'm wrong. It could change in 5 minutes. Should a bunch of these guys come back. So as we sit today, as this podcast drops, pretenders, baby.
Here's the deal, though. If you take your mindset into this where you're like, well, what if they get hurt? Or if they're swinging a bat and they get hurt? You can say that about a guy like Alex Gordon, Lorenzo Cain. You can say that about Mike Moustakas for the Kansas City Royals, who just won a World Series.
Right.
That's the chance that you take when you play sports. I mean, if you want to sit there and you want to take this over into hockey, what if a guy winds up with a slap shot at the blue line and it decks somebody in the face and breaks their orbital bone?
Now,
that will happen. It happens. It's sports. Injuries are part of the game.
Now, for your argument,
you got to count on some of the depth that you have, and I like some of the depth that they have going on right now. They've got a couple young bats that are actually swinging them well. And that might not pay dividends early in the season, but come July, August, September, as you make your way into October, those young bats, if they're still swinging them well in the minor leagues, can come up and add some boost.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that as well, not relatively speaking, compared to also what's around Major League Baseball. Teams in the AL East got better. I think Boston and the Yankees are significantly better. Teams out west are significantly better. The teams in the Central. And also, too,
do you have to win in the West and do you have to win in the East? You just have to win the Central.
Yeah,
I think they're good enough to win the Central.
Okay, we can have that debate as the season starts. But I believe that also, too, I'm not overvaluing the talent. I saw what this team did last year with a JD Martinez mashing the baseball, with a JV that it had a improved second half, and an Anibal Sanchez on the team. So I saw a little bit of last year. Now you did upgrade.
You had a hurt Verlander and you had a hurt Sanchez.
Second half was a lot better than the first half
for Verlander, but Sanchez was hurt most of the second half. On top of that, you had an injured Miguel, and you had an injured Victor Martinez. Add both those guys to the lineup, and I don't know if Victor will be 100% or not, so we can't say anything there, but Miguel, by all accounts, is 100%. If JD continues on his torrent pace, I'm expecting a little bit of a regression, but not much. I think you're solid right there. I think you're solid.
Okay, we'll see. What do you think? The early votes, 80%, 20%. Which way do you think the fans voted?
They're Detroit fans. They're going to say contenders.
You got it. Early voting and the Twitter poll at Detroit Podcast, 80% say the Tigers are going to be contenders. That's good.
The Detroit fans look at all their teams with Detroit glasses on.
It's not bad, though.
I got into a little bit of a Twitter beef last time. I mean, it wasn't really much because I shut the guy down. But honestly, like talking about Cronwell being a step slow, and this guy got all butthurt. He's like, "Are you one of those lackeys who just jump in with 10 minutes or 10 games left in the season?" Bro, I've been watching all game.
Yeah, I know.
All season. Come on now.
I did see that. Let's take a quick break. Good Tigers talk. Take a quick break. We'll play a round of the Doctors in Session, and we'll finish out this podcast with a look at one of the USA Today mock drafts and a look back at what was probably one of the most disappointing losses and weekends in college basketball.
March Sadness, baby. March Sadness.
Stay with us, Doc and Jock, Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You've been listening to episode 137.
Doc and Jock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wing shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah, that's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel, a bit unstable. Don't be breaking the brain, break the whole damn table.
Welcome back. You're listening to the longest running weekly episodic Detroit sports podcast. This is what we call the Doctor is in Session. The king of the couch is ready to take his throne. The Jock has 3 great questions prepared for me, and I'm ready to bring some strong sports opinions. And what we call the Doctor is in Session.
But to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo, right here. I'm the man. Woo!
So your bipolar Pistons, they're coming off of a game on Saturday evening where they scored 52 points, came from their bench, and they got a win against Brooklyn.
A winning streak!
And then they go into Milwaukee. They take on Milwaukee, and they get that last-second tip in by Andre Drummond. They've taken on Orlando. They've got 10 games left in the season. What do these Pistons have to do to make it into the playoffs?
I really feel like the formula is very simple. First and foremost, we talked about a little bit on the Motor City Sports Rant that comes out every Tuesday. What's fascinating with the Pistons are they have all the markings of a 500 team. Inconsistent. Some games they can play with the best in the NBA. They hit their shots. They rotate great defensively. They're communicating. They're taking great shots. Their shot selection is awesome. They play as a team. And then the next night they come out and they look like they've never played together ever. And you got Stan Van Gundy coming out and going, we're getting our asses kicked. We didn't bring it. You have situations where Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond are new to this being a leader type role. You have Andre Drummond who can't be in games late because of his free throw issues. What the Pistons need to do down the stretch is try to figure out, and I think the easiest fix is try to figure out what they can do on the defensive end to play a lot better. They are making weak shooting teams look awesome. I have not seen stat lines where teams that on average shoot between 40 and 45% are shooting like 53%. I'm like, seriously? There are so many wide open threes that these opponents of ours are taking that you're like, that's effort. Everyone that talks about defense says that all it is communication and effort. And so why is it at this point in the season when all the chips are on the line and it's crunch time, you are not that far off from actually being on higher seed? Where is the effort? Where's the intensity? Understanding that the Pistons have a lot of injuries, a lot of situations that have happened throughout the course of this year. But 2 things have to happen for the Pistons to make the playoffs. Will they? I have them now finishing around 42 wins, 43 wins, just missing the playoffs. I feel like they're going to be the first team out. They're going to finish with the 9th seed because you're going to have Chicago and Charlotte and all the other teams above them lose too. And I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing the trend that the teams behind them and above them are going to fade off. So if the Pistons are going to do it, they're going to have Andre Drummond and Reggie Jackson take a hold of this team and be the leaders that they are needed to be, and they have to bring it night in, night out. Reggie Jackson can't have games where he's turning the ball over, where his shots are all off and he keeps jacking them up. He can't have games where Andre Drummond is all over the place. They have to establish that consistency. They have to embrace that role. I think if they do, if they just improve the defense 10% and they commit, if Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond commit to being leaders and taking this team by the grasp and saying, okay, we got this, and playing a better brand of basketball, that Brooklyn game was indicative of it. You started off slow, but then you came back and you were able to handle your business. I really believe it's a competitive team. This is a team that's scratching and clawing. I know it's a young team, but at this point in time, it's crunch time. It's money time. It's go time. Improve on the defense, and Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond have to step it up. If you can just get Andre Drummond to shoot 50, 55% at the free throw line, that would help a lot. But if he can't, if he's going to be a guy that's going to be taken out, then you're going to look at a team that might just finish out of the playoffs. And I really think it would really hurt the state of Piston basketball because they haven't been to the playoffs a long time. You have a fan base that's just ready and willing to get behind them, but they haven't because everyone's kind of set up for a letdown because of the nature of what we see. The games that they've lost haven't been that good, and they've been, in the last week, the games that they've lost, their defense has just been atrocious.
No bigger game is indicative of what you just said than that Milwaukee game. At one point, they were down by, I think, almost 20 points. They went on like a 16-0 run, and next thing you know, they're back in it. And that's all defense. Like you said, it's all effort. Speaking of a team that hasn't shown any effort lately, your Detroit Red Wings. They got bounced the other night on Tuesday, 6-2 into Tampa. Nobody showed up that game. Offense looked atrocious. Couldn't capitalize on any other scoring chances. Defense looked a tad slow again. Nicholas Kronwall, I think, was in -3. He was atrocious out there. On top of that, you have 9 games left in the season. You're currently outside of the playoffs looking in as Philadelphia is tied with you with 83 points. I think they have the tiebreaker there, though. On top of that, the Islanders, who are 2 points ahead of you in the first spot, and they have, at this point, 2 games ahead of you. So you're now battling, and you're trying to win every game you can possibly win to sit there and get into the playoffs. And right now, you've got the back seat. What percentage do you put for these Red Wings to make the playoffs?
35%. This is it, though. That percentage could rise after these next 3 games. This is it. This is the game stretch. This is the 4-game stretch where you're playing teams just a little bit outside of the postseason.
They have to win these games, is what you're saying.
Montreal, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Montreal. You have to finish out this month strong, almost basically winning 3 of 4. You have to collect 2 points in almost every single game that you're going to play because in April, that last week of the season is going to be very challenging, and you're going to need to find ways to pick up points. Let's first start with that atrocious game versus Tampa Bay. You're not even ready. Your defense was terrible. That first goal probably upset you so much in that Tampa Bay was just able to go through our defense like butter, score a goal on Jimmy Howard. In a game where Blashill may have made a mistake in starting Jimmy Howard, he was atrocious. You bring in Mrazek, no difference there. He was awful.
Mrazek wasn't any better.
Concerning. That's a big concern. That's why my percentage right now is low. The
2 of those 3 goals on Howard weren't his fault.
Right, exactly.
And I don't ever
He got pulled.
I bash him usually.
He got pulled. Mrazek was brought in. And right now, you are looking at a team that is being, hampered by the fact that the biggest stars are not acting like the biggest stars. You're going to count on a 19-year-old to carry you? Where's Datsuk, who's starting to look like a guy that might be one skate out the door? You're looking at Zetterberg, who's a shell of himself. You're looking at guys that you would expect to be the leaders of this team now with experience.
Kronwall, who's your number 1 defenseman, who gets burned often every single game.
So when people say the future's bright with the Red Wings, I understand you have talent, but you have a lot of potential. Right now, what we're seeing on the ice is not a team that's playing that well. And I don't know how you're going to just say, okay, yeah, we're going to pick up 2 points each and every game when you're not scoring well consistently, your goaltending is not great, and your defense is getting shredded. So a lot of, hey, can this team turn on the switch just that fast? I'm a little bit concerned. I'm not exactly happy with Blashill. I'm not exactly happy with Holland. Right now, it's crunch time. It's a little bit more nerve-wracking than what I would like. But when you look at it, it doesn't look like a team that's poised to make the playoffs. It doesn't look like they're trending upward. I know the schedule is easy, but what the Red Wings typically do then is just go into overtime with these teams, get a point. You got to remember, Philadelphia has a game in hand. So you're going to have to pick up points. So that game versus Philadelphia could be it. That could be the game, the marquee matchup where we look at and say, okay, if the Red Wings can get the 2 points versus Philly, you're in a much better spot. But tonight's game versus Montreal, you better go out there and dominate. And basically, the rest of these 9 games are first round. You got to go out there and you got to win at least 5 to 6 of them to even have a chance. So right now, as we speak, 35%. It's trending downward, but hey, I've seen it before. I've seen the Red Wings slide into the playoffs, and real quickly, it is a huge disappointment if they don't make it. I'm not one that says, oh, you need to take a season off and let the legs regroup and bada bada boop. Last year, they got out in 7 games, so it's not like they're not rested. These are athletes. They need to have a playoff run because all you got to do is get in. Get in, hey, maybe everything comes together and you make that Cinderella run. But right now, it's not looking good.
And hockey's one of those sports where you can get in as the last seed
Get in.
on the very final day and win a Stanley Cup.
You can ride Mrazek as a hot goaltender all the way to the cup.
Exactly.
Just get in.
Do you realize that Henrik Zetterberg leads this team in points with 45?
Oh.
There are other players out there who have almost as many goals as he has points.
Yeah, I've watched
it's insane.
I'm a fan of hockey. I just think right now my fandom of the Red Wings is very, very challenging because there's so many great offensive teams and a lot of young talent putting up a lot of points. It's fun to watch.
That's right. What are your thoughts on Jake Rudock meeting with the Lions in regards to being brought in as a developmental quarterback for this franchise? Maybe somebody to push your buddy Matt Stafford. This is a good tie-in, too, because it covers U of M as well as the Lions.
Cinderella would say that maybe this is going to be the next heralded great quarterback who was underrated, that has this burning desire to be the greatest 4-time Super Bowl champion.
Tom Brady 2.0?
If it didn't involve him going to the Lions, I would even consider saying it. But no, what do I think about it? I think it's awful. I think that it's something that, needed to happen before with maybe even better quarterbacks. Jake Rudock can be a guy that's going to be in the background and things like that. But what I feel and what I sense is the Lions are going to ride or die with Matthew Stafford. Whatever happens to him, as long as he doesn't get hurt, he's the guy. I mean, all he has to basically do this year is throw a lot of touchdowns, get at least 6 to 8 wins, and he's in line for almost, $22-23 million per. So what is Jake Rudock actually going to be able to learn as a developmental quarterback? I understand that the draft philosophy has been to kind of ride out Dan Orlovsky, have not that great of backups, and they haven't drafted a quarterback that's been, someone that could actually push Matthew Stafford. You had Kellen Moore. He goes off to Dallas. You bring back Orlovsky. There really hasn't been anybody to actually shake the boots of Matthew Stafford, give him a little scare. And I don't think Jake Rudock's going to scare Matthew Stafford at all.
Let me ask you this real quick. Do you think Jake Rudock's a better option than Dan Orlovsky?
No.
If he was brought in, tutored a little bit?
I think that he has potential. Jake Rudock can be someone that can be a game manager.
Oh, the scariest word ever, potential.
He's got game manager written all over him. And so, but this is a guy we don't know when he gets on the field. Does he have that burning desire to be the absolute best? I really believe that being drafted, 199 in the 6th round, lit a fire under Tom Brady in such a way that if he might have been drafted in the 1st, 2nd round, you might not have seen this. He might just be the next Brian Hoyer. But because he was burned, because he felt like he was insulted, and because of the fact that he had that burning desire to prove everybody wrong, this is what you got. And so you don't get 4 Super Bowls if he's drafted 15th. You get it when you're insulted and you use that every day as motivation to push yourself. Jake Rudock coming in, great. You need to do it, but go out there and actually get a guy. Go out there and get somebody that has starting experience, that has experience winning games, that can push Matthew Stafford, that if you actually bench him again this year, which is likely to happen at least once, that you can go in there and actually win the game. If the Lions bench Stafford, I'm turning off the TV. No chance of winning.
Sticking with Wolverines football, do you have any thoughts or opinions on what's transpired between Jim Harbaugh and athletic director at Ohio State?
10 years. Twitter's been around 10 years. I've seen the hashtag happy 10-year anniversary of Twitter. This is what it's for. You got a guy in Jim Harbaugh.
Would you like me to set the scene for you?
Set the scene, baby. It's great.
Okay,
I know you like it.
Let me set the scene here. So Ohio State's athletic director, Gene Smith, was asked what he thought about U of M participating in the IMG football training camps down in Florida. His response was, it's creative. Does it help from a recruiting and marketing point of view? I get that. If we were jumpstarting our program, I'd probably try and do that too. But we're not jumpstarting our program. We're in a different place. To which Coach Jim Harbaugh,
via Twitter,
fired back via Twitter. Good to see Director Smith being relevant again after the tattoo fiasco. Welcome back. Which is a great response. Great response.
Great response. Listen, Jim Harbaugh is a man's man. He's a coach's coach. A lot of people who are traditionalists aren't going to like that you actually would respond to a troll type situation. But that's what Twitter's for. You have an outlet, and Jim Harbaugh has been using it perfectly. Everything that he's done via his Twitter page has been awesome. It's his behaviors outside of that have been a little bit questioning in terms of, hey, what are you doing with these recruits? Fine. Everyone that talks to Harbaugh says he's a little bit eccentric, he's different, and things like that. But this is the new age, brother. This is the age of Twitter where you throw out rants and you throw out Jordan heads, crying Jordan on anybody that has a devastating loss.
On Adamar Straczynski and Jay Rose, WXYT.
Because I'm sure, I don't know if you got a chance to see this last Monday's WXYZ.com web show. He looks at your bracket and goes, "Oh, busted." Puts it down.
Mm-hmm.
You guys,
it is
now
it's brutal.
Real quickly, I'm gonna bring up a great point. You guys had an opportunity on film to actually document one of the greatest upsets in the history of sports. Justin revealed that after you left and after they did the Facebook Live, they changed the fan voting. The fans, if you recall, when you did the bracket, voted Middle Tennessee State to beat Michigan State.
That's true.
And you guys were all like poo-pooing it and going like, hey, they think that it's just all a bunch of U of M fans. So, a behind-the-scenes edit took place. And on the fan bracket, Justin Rose changed it to back to Michigan State.
So shouldn't they get credit for their original vote?
They brought it up. That the fans did believe, and they had maybe some inside info that Michigan State was going to lose. But the bracket that you guys did was, not to say underwhelming, but it wasn't that great.
Dude, you need to douse it in kerosene and set it on fire.
Wasn't that great?
Atrocious.
Wasn't that great? And if you stay with us in the next segment, we're going to have to break it all down. But Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, do your thing, brother. I love it. It's a good follow. That's all you can ask for on a social media account. Be a good follow. And he's an account that you just got to peek in every once in a while because you never know what you're going to get. It's going to be awesome. Good stuff.
He's, like you said, he's a good follow.
All right.
It's fun.
Let's take a quick break, come back here, finish this podcast strong. It's been fun, flying by like always. We'll talk about March Sadness and the USA Today's mock draft that you did that I really like and one that brought a smile to my face. Stay with us, Doc and Jock, Detroit Sports Podcast Network, episode 137. I want to tell everyone out there about DetroitSportsNation.com. They're a great website, and they've been very supportive to all the shows on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. They host all the podcasts. They have great writers that cover all the Detroit teams, all the college teams. Check out their website and support those who support us. DetroitSportsNation.com. The collaboration has been excellent, and it's helped us to continue to grow and have great guests, take phone calls. So our collaboration with the Detroit Sports Nation has really been successful, and support those who support us. DetroitSportsNation.com.
Turn up.
Mike Wilmer.
We gon' always get money, man. Young Jeezy, Big Sean, Juicy J. Let's get it. Every time I go out, you know I got to show out. Every time I go out, you know I bring the dough out. Every time they go out, you know they bring their hoe out. Every time I go out, you know I bring the flow out. Every time I go out, you know I got to show out. Every time I go out, you know I got to show out. Every time I go out, you know I got to show out.
Thanks, everybody who's been showing us love and support on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I appreciate the call to action when I say, hey, go support us on DetroitSportsPodcast.com. We've been getting a lot of great engagement on the Top Cat Sales High School Coach of the Week. A lot of great votes, a lot of good awards, a lot of good things going down on the podcast network. Before we talk about March Sadness and USA Today mock draft, I want to bring up something that I saw that I was like, really, that's been taking over the country and is something that's perturbing to me. And I'm going to make a quick point here. Coming into work yesterday morning, getting ready to do my job, right? And I see a big, tall adult on a hoverboard. And I almost was tempted to stop the car, pull out my cell phone and be like, dude, seriously, you're in your 30s. You're a Middle Eastern man, tall and proud. Why the hell are you on a hoverboard? And it's just everywhere I go, I see how lazy are we as a society? You got two legs and we got people all in my sub, all in the streets, just standing there trying to do squats to get this stupid hoverboard to move. I don't get the whole concept. Not only the fact that they're catching on fire, the cheap ones, I don't get the whole hoverboard craze. Let's put an end to this. It's stupid. I don't get it at all. I don't like it. And I don't like seeing grown-ass men on hoverboards. It looks weird, and I don't understand the fascination with hoverboards at all. I think they're stupid.
If they were cool, like Back to the Future,
It's stupid.
I maybe rock one, but no, I'm not.
You ever been on one?
No.
Yeah, they're
No.
stupid, right?
No, I was driving one day. I think it was last week. I was driving to the store, and I sat there. I pulled up at 8 Mile and DeQuinder, and there was a kid who was just looping around the corner on his little hoverboard, just back and forth, back and forth. I was waiting for him to actually slip and fall. I was actually hoping he'd slip and fall.
Yeah, see, exactly. So let's put an end to this hoverboard craze, and it's pissing me off, so I had to bring it up real fast.
I don't understand it.
All right.
Speaking of pissing you off, what happened to your Michigan State Spartans?
What happened? That's $1 million question. So I'm all relaxed. Friday, 2:45. I'm like, okay, I don't have to peek into this. This is gonna be a blowout. This is Michigan State. They're going to the title.
Michigan State thought this too.
Yeah.
It showed by their play.
15-2 start. Middle Tennessee brought it, and basically what happened was David showed up and Goliath didn't. What made it more embarrassing and worse was the next game, Middle Tennessee State got dropped and got hammered by Syracuse. So they basically showed up, played the best game, a franchise game, whatever you want to call it. They played their absolute best. They peaked, and Michigan State didn't show up, and they bombed. And in the end, they lost, and that's what happens. You don't play. And remember, if you find your information from Detroit Sports Podcast, Adam and I talked about it. Adam and I bantered about the tournament, and I said I had a premonition. It wasn't exactly spot on. My psychic clouds were 10% off, but the psychics, gave me the message through my dreams that something awful was going to happen. The psychics actually talked to me. Something happened in my psyche and aura where I got a feeling like Denzel Valentine was going to be crying and there was going to be a major upset. It happened to be in the first round, and Adam said, it'd have to be something devastating and something atrocious would have to happen, and we broke it down. We said Michigan State doesn't rebound. They don't make their shots. They get turnover prone. They don't play if they're not Duke in North Carolina. If they don't play their at least a B game, hell, come to the dance with a C game. They got bounced. It is embarrassing. I don't care about the comparisons as to, how big a loss it was. It's a devastating loss in a situation where you could have made a run. It doesn't hurt as much because I really didn't think they would actually win it all. I'm always hesitant, and that's why I don't thump my chest, because we're not North Carolina. We're not Duke. You're not Kentucky. You're just under that. You're a top 5 program, but you're number 4 or 5. So you're not going to just show up and just roll through to the Final Four. I wasn't actually.
How did Kentucky do? Kentucky got bounced by Indiana.
Oh, did they? Oh, yeah. Well, they got farther than Michigan State, so better than what we did.
How did Duke do? They're still in it. They're still in it.
See how they do. And so with that, I can give you a sense that with that, my bubble was burst. I didn't watch a single other game.
Yeah.
I'm checked out.
I basically have checked out as well because I have no shot of winning our bracket challenge, any of our bracket challenges.
Oh, yeah. How am I doing compared to you?
You're winning. You're doing much better than I. Mm-hmm. Really and truly, if you look at this game and you kind of break down what happened, Michigan State didn't come to play. They weren't ready. They underestimated their opponent.
Yeah.
On top of that, Middle Tennessee killed it from deep. They shot almost 60% from three-point land. That's unbelievable. On top of it, Denzel Valentine had probably his worst game of the year. He turned the ball over 6 times. Huh. I think he only had 13 points. This coming off of the heels of him scoring anywhere from 20 to 32 points every single game. He had probably his single worst game of his career. That being said, you needed him to perform. Matt Costello was your best player that game.
Yes, he was.
Matt Costello, up until this year, has been absolute garbage. Honestly, he's just big, tall, and he would just kind of sit there and bang a little bit down low. He hasn't really provided you anything until Denzel Valentine's taken the ball over, taken the game over, and has force-fed him and turned him into something. So the whole thing with this game is just Michigan State underestimates their opponent. Opponent gets hot from deep, and Michigan State's best player does not perform.
Is this the worst loss you've ever seen from a major university? Is this one of the biggest upsets you could think of all time?
It has to be. It has to be.
No.
I think U of M, Appalachian State was probably number 1, but you have to look at where this was and what happened. Going into this game, we sat there and we bantered back and forth on whether or not they should be a 1 seed. We accepted the 2 seed because we thought they had the easiest route to get to the Final Four. This team was ranked number 2 in the country in all of basketball, and they go out and they lose to a 15 seed. This has to be the worst loss by a major university ever. And look at it this way. Going into this game, there was nothing but talk about national championships. Everybody expected them to win a national championship. If you go back to that U of M team, the U of M team wasn't expected to win a national championship. They were expected to compete for a Big Ten title. That was it. And they weren't ranked number 2 in the country. I think they were like number 7 that year going into that game. This has to be the biggest loss ever by a major university.
Yeah, it's a bad one. It ranks up there, but there have been other big time losses. Teams like Duke, teams like Syracuse, other teams have lost big games. It ranks up there because half the country or a lot of the brackets, at least 20-30% of the brackets felt like Michigan State was going to win the entire thing. So it ranks up there, top 5 upset. But where it ranks in terms of all time, it's up there.
Again, take into account where they're ranked in all of the landscape. They were ranked number 2. Mm-hmm. Take into account how much the expectations were that they were going to win a national championship. I mean, they were amazing. Everybody had them penciled into their Final Four. Everybody did. And if you didn't, you were a future seer here. But yeah, this has to be one of the biggest losses ever. That being said, what surprised you about this tournament? I mean, because just everywhere you turned, it was shock and awe.
Yeah, what surprised me has been, the Big Ten has actually put some teams into the Sweet 16. You had teams that were counted out that Michigan State made it a little bit irrelevant just based on how they played in the Big Ten. You had teams like Maryland, Indiana do some things. And so it's nice to see that the Big Ten is represented. They're going to have a chance to actually do some things. And Indiana was a good team. They were number 1 going into the Big Ten tournament. But it was nice to see a couple teams in the Big Ten advance. What else has been surprising? To be honest, once Michigan State lost, I totally checked out. And I just kind of didn't really care anymore. I was just kind of like, you know what? Michigan lost. They didn't play good. I thought that their effort in the first half was very surprising in that you saw what they could do if they were going to fire on all cylinders. And you were able to put together your best half of the year. It just was so disappointing that Michigan couldn't carry that out and keep that 12-point lead and end up losing to Notre Dame. Notre Dame had an exciting game. That half-court shot or the half-court shot to win the game was awesome. So the bracket at this point in time for me, because I'm a state guy, I did not check into it anymore. I can honestly say I just didn't care anymore. It's just like, you know what? The team that I had winning is gone. The other team that I would peek into, Michigan's gone. I don't really care anymore. And so I was devastated and didn't watch a single moment. I catch the highlights. That's about it.
Yeah,
checked out, right?
I'm basically done with it. Yeah, honestly, there's no intrigue there for me anymore. So I'm kind of like, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. It happened, and for me, it's justified because it is a big time loss, and it is, you could say, Michigan State's Appalachian State moment. It's a big time loss, but Michigan State's had big time losses before. I mean, they've been bounced in the first round several times. They had a team, going into Judd Heathcoast last year that was expected to do damage being a 3 seed. They get bounced in the first round, ending his tenure. So Michigan State, like I said, and I said it on the podcast, I put it out there. We've had big losses. That's why I can never thump my chest, and I probably never will. I always have and always state those doubts. And when you lose to Middle Tennessee State as a number 2 seed and number 2 overall in the entire country, what are you going to do? It happens.
I feel you, man. It just, honestly, it just, looking at the landscape of college basketball this year, I guess we shouldn't be shocked by it.
Right.
But still, up until probably the final 45 seconds, I thought they were going to win that game. And they ended up blowing it, man. They lost.
All right.
So it totally shocked me.
Let's change gears. Let's talk about something a little bit more positive.
Okay.
All right. You went out. You saw Nate Davis's USA Today, which is a site I check every day. I like USA Today's mobile app. They got great insight. And even if you don't want to look at sports news, you can look at other type news in terms of money, finances, entertainment, regular national news. It's a great application, and USA Today, I love it. Simple. I like that format, and that's how I get a lot of my national information. So tell us about Nate Davis's mock draft, a name that we actually hinted at last week on our podcast, Doc and Jock. So good stuff. Very good mock draft. Break it down for us.
With this mock draft, he has Jerron Reed being selected number 16 by your Detroit Lions. For those who don't know, he's a defensive tackle from Alabama. And he writes, even with Haloti Ngata back, the Lions still need to get better and younger at defensive tackle. A year after parting with Ndamukong Suh, and getting more push inside only benefits DN Ziggy Ansah off the edge. And this is a guy who we both talked about. We're both high on. We both like him. The guy's a freight train out there. So I'm not opposed to this. I like this. The guy who goes after Jerron Reed, Darren Lee, linebacker from Ohio State. I believe he ran a 4.5, or actually it was a 4.4 40. Dude, super quick. This could be your Chris Spielman-like linebacker, if you will. So I wouldn't be upset if they took him either. In this mock draft, they have the Atlanta Falcons drafting him. And it says about him, one reason Dan Quinn's Seattle defense was so dominant was due to the athleticism of the linebackers. It's an area where the Falcons are sorely lacking, but Lee could instantly change as a rangy asset who affects on all 3 downs. Now, John Reed would be great because he helps fill another hole in that defensive tackle position. He helps plug up the middle. And again, like he writes, it helps Ziggy Ansah. It helps the edge rushers. You bring in a guy like a Darren Lee, he would play outside linebacker. He'd be a guy who could get to the quarterback, and he also can chase guys down. So if something pops on that in that run game, I could see him stalking prey down the field there and just grabbing them. So I like both of those guys. And then Taylor Decker goes to Indianapolis at 18. I don't really want him.
Now, when I saw the mock draft, I was like, oh, perfect. This is a guy that was like, okay, listen to our podcast, made a mock draft. His version 4.0, though. I understand that. Some people are on their 4th version. So
other people haven't even started one.
So listen, Alabama, you can never really go wrong with a player. And so I understand that people are patient. You say, hey, what's a guy going to be able to do in his first year? But remember, Alabama and Nick Saban are well known to have defensive prowess, and Alabama is a storied program. So and if you say from Alabama, I would go, I'm 70% confident that he's going to be coachable, that he's going to be someone that comes in and at least has, a desire and a fundamental understanding of what needs to take place. And he would fit in actually relatively well to Terrell Austin's system, and it would be great because then you could say, okay, now we got another force there to pressure the quarterback. We got another force that can help stop the run, and you got a player that could come in and really bolster this defense. So if that's the player that the Detroit Lions select, I would be thrilled. And I mean, the Lions have made some interesting moves this week. They picked up Curley, a number 3 wide receiver, not ultra productive his last few seasons, but a guy that can make people miss. And if he's in the right system, maybe he can be a guy that flourishes. And
he's a dual threat guy, too.
Dual threat.
He can play some special teams, good punt returner.
I'm getting excited for this draft. I think the Lions are actually going to do well in this draft. I think that, Bob Quinn is a guy that's going to have a fundamental understanding of what the board is going to look like. And what's interesting is it's not only where you rank the players, it's how you adjust to the flow of the draft. Because sometimes some teams are going to hold things really close to the vest, and they're going to be able to kind of adjust and maybe take a player that you're surprised to. How would the Lions react to that? I feel like they'll be prepared, and they'll know that, hey, if the draft doesn't go exactly how we think, how to move and slot players in the right ways and how to organize and get what they need. I just don't want them to go out there, and if they go out there and get an offensive weapon, do not go out there and get a wide receiver. Get an offensive lineman, get someone that's going to protect Stafford, or go out there and get someone that's going to be on the defensive line, and you build through the trenches. I believe that's what he said publicly. Whether he does it and executes it, another thing to be seen. I'm still holding an idea that he could trade down or trade for more picks, but if they're there at 16 and they take Jarran Reed, I'm happy as a whistle.
Speaking of trading in the draft, Tennessee has come out and made it known that they have the number 1 draft pick, and it's basically up for sale if you want it. And I think that's partially to do with Cleveland being number 2 and the expectations that they're going to take Carson Wentz, who by all accounts seems to be the number 1 overall quarterback. So if you want him as a quarterback, now is your chance to get him. Firmly slotted in at the number 1 overall pick on just about everybody's mock draft. Laramie Tunsil, tackle out of Ole Miss. The guy, by all accounts, has incredible skill, has incredible talent, and will only get better, and will slot in immediately as an impact left tackle in the NFL, according to all the scouts and everything you read about the guy. If you're the Detroit Lions, would you consider possibly moving up to number 1 to get your left tackle of the future? Basically, taking care of 2 to 3 moves as you slot him in at left tackle. Riley Reif now slots over at right tackle, so now you have a better than average right tackle, you've got a stud left tackle, and now you have some depth at that tackle position as well. Would you do something like that?
We have our left tackle of the future. Duh, it's Riley Reif.
Captain Turnstile.
That's the guy that's going to take us to the promised land. That's the guy that's going to protect Matthew Stafford. The report said that they're keeping him there. They're not thinking about shifting him over. So that squashes your idea. Hell,
I'm just asking.
Yeah.
I'm just asking, would you consider it?
No.
It'd probably cost you this year's first round pick, and possibly next year's first round pick, and maybe a second rounder.
Yeah, no. The Lions aren't going to do that. The Lions have to find ways to add picks, because if you're starting to look at it overall, the Lions have made improvements, but I don't get the vibe yet that they're like significantly better. It seems like, okay, we've lost a player, we've added a player. We've lost a position, we've added a position. It doesn't exactly give me the vibe that this team is better than last year. It just seems like you're replacing pieces interchangeably. And when you lose Megatron, just like we said, hey, when they lost Sue, it's a good defense, but it's not going to be the same. The Lions offense is going to be good, but it's not going to be the same without Calvin Johnson. And so I'm fascinated to see what this draft board is going to look like. If you take Jerron Reed, if you take a linebacker, if you take anybody in the secondary, if you take anybody on defense, if the Lions believe they're going to come in right away and be productive this year, not to be world beaters, Pro Bowlers, or whatever, but be productive and be a member of the team, then hey, I'm all for it. And so far, this is Nate Davis's mock draft is really, really good. Good mock draft.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it. If they take, again, defensive tackle, cornerback, linebacker, those are all holes that have to be filled on this team. I'd be ecstatic if they took any one of those.
Now, before we get out of here, you got to check out my last tweet. Steph Curry and his dad revealed how...
Oh, yeah, no, I heard about it.
Unbelievable. When you read the details of
totally
how unprepared...
Nike just botched it. But then again, when Steph Curry came out, nobody thought he was going to be as good as he was.
That's not what you do. You don't throw up someone else's name. You don't basically take out Kevin Durant's name and put in Steph Curry's name and say, hey, here's a presentation.
Or address him by the wrong name during negotiations.
Stefan. They called him Stefan.
Numerous times, too.
Stefan Curry.
Wow. Yeah, total boner move.
See, I would actually kind of laugh and things like that, but it's kind of interesting how they revealed it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in one of those moments where you say, nobody cares. # Good stuff, cuz. What you got going on the rest of the week before we get out of here?
I'm going to play some hockey on Friday, and then it's just try to make it to Easter here. That's about it, man.
That's right. Sweet 16, maybe. I'll peek into the Elite Eight, see which teams make the Final Four. But I'm not interested. I'm just not, you know what? And really, to be honest, basketball as a whole is not drawing my interest. So talking about basketball a lot is not drawing my interest. Watching basketball is not drawing my interest. And I sent out a tweet.
You don't want to talk about basketball day after day after day after day?
No. Not in the state of Michigan. I put out a tweet.
Wait, do you want to talk about Cleveland basketball day after day after day after day?
Not a lot, no.
I don't understand why in Detroit, why would we care about what the hell's going on with Cleveland? Who gives two shits about LeBron James?
Yeah.
I don't understand it either.
So, I'm kind of basketballed out. But I am interested to see, though, if the Pistons can make a push for the playoffs, if they can, get through some of these defensive woes, get through some of these defensive issues, and can they take that next step? But, and I think to encompass it, my thoughts were, and where my anger lies, is the Pistons, the Lions, the Tigers, the Red Wings, they're nowhere near title contenders. And so we're kind of just place setters now. We're now debating, oh my God, are they going to get to the playoffs? You got to remember, these were title teams. These were teams that were at the height of their leagues. Now they're not. And it's disappointing, it's angering to be talking about it. I know you have to peek in, day out, to kind of see the rise of these teams. But where we're at now is kind of like, hey, let's struggle to get in the playoffs and see who's going to whack us in the first round. It's not a spot I like to be. I like to be a top dog, and I want to be at the San Antonio level, the Golden State level, the Chicago Blackhawks level, Green Bay Packers level. We're not near that in Detroit sports. But hey, we're still fans, and it's still going down. We still check in, but it's angering me to not be looked at among the best.
At this point, we're a middle. Every one of our sports,
middle of the road.
We're a middle tier team.
Yeah.
We're nowhere near being echelon, and we're not quite Cleveland, if you will, and anything. So it's a difficult time. Honestly, it is, because as a sports fan, you expect championships, you want wins. All you care about is the W. That's what you want to get. And when you're kind of in this middle tier, it doesn't give you hope, because you're not getting a high draft pick to be able to add to your team and better your team that way. And you're not winning enough games to be considered one of the top teams. So it's a very frustrating point to be at, especially in Detroit sports right now.
All right, let's get out of here. Thank you for downloading. We greatly appreciate all the support. Downloads have been up the last couple of weeks. We greatly appreciate all those that download and find our podcast across the various platforms. Find us on Podbase, Stitcher, Podomatic, DetroitSportsNation.com, our website, DetroitSportsPodcast.com. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Thank you for listening to another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Go Wings, go Pistons.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me. They tell me things that
Show me things that you leave. Take time to